Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, I'm going to be talking about the second album from Daft Punk, Discovery. Now, you may recall that I wasn't exactly partial to Daft Punk's first album, Homework. Like, it was good when I wasn't paying attention to it, but the fact remains that I had to tune it out in order to enjoy it. Granted, Daft Punk has never really struck me as a band that you really have to pay attention to really closely in order to enjoy. I mean, they've carved out a unique style for themselves. Though that doesn't always turn out to be 100% listenable, you can tell that they put a lot of love into their stuff, and they love what they do, even if their attention to detail isn't exactly their biggest strength. I guess what I'm saying is that their music is pretty simplistic. So for their second album, they kind of put a new spin on their formula, this time using a lot of samples from semi-obscure funk songs, and just overall kind of having a more pop-flavored approach. So that means more stuff of the around the world and high-fidelity variety, which is good. And in case you didn't figure it out, not only do I think this album is better than Homework, like way better than Homework, but it's also one of my favorite albums ever. Homework was pretty focused and well put together, but Discovery is even more so. And it's a lot easier for me to get into, do much more of a focus on melody rather than beats and noise and all that stuff. The sampling here is about as liberal as it was on Homework, except Homework kind of tended to sample, like, just beats. But here they sample, like, entire hooks from old funk songs. They're not exactly super creative with their sampling, but they repurpose their samples enough to make their songs memorable on their own merit, and oftentimes catchier than the originals that they drew from. Homework had a couple of duds that weren't particularly memorable, but all 14 songs on Discovery are easily memorable and quite catchy. Like, the first 4 songs off this album, you really don't need any introduction. One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Instantly memorable pop songs and tons of fun, pretty obvious single choices. Well, not so much Aerodynamic, as it's an instrumental and kind of an odd one at that. It's got 3 different hooks, one that Daft Punk sampled and 2 that they came up with themselves. But whereas Homework didn't really impress me all that much beyond their singles, all the deep cuts on Discovery were fantastic and catchy too. Like, Superheroes, that starts with, like, this really repetitive, Barry Manilow sample, but then eventually turns into, like, some kind of triumphant fanfare kind of song at the end. There's Voyager, that kind of has, like, a spacier edge to it, and it's got this cool, guitar loop. I like this one. Short Circuit's another song that kind of starts out in one place and ends up in another. Like, first it's kind of like this choppy, glitchy banger, and the second half has all these repeating synth chords that just have their sound quality gradually compressed and squished into nothing. Now, there are 2 songs on this album that don't really do a lot for me, and they're Crescent Dolls and High Life. Crescent Dolls, for the longest time, was my least favorite. The sample wasn't great, it kinda got annoying to me. Like, the vocals on that Crescent Doll sample kinda sounded oddly pitch-shifted and, like, sounded like somebody was being choked or something. High Life, on the other hand, just impressed me less and less with repeated listens. Like, Crescent Dolls did eventually grow on me. I don't find it nearly as annoying as I used to. Its catchiness won out in the end. High Life, not so much. Like, I liked that one at first, but as time goes on, like, this one's just kind of okay. It's just kind of overshadowed by all the rest of the album. Or maybe it was just because it paled in comparison to a song with a very similar title, High Fidelity, and that song is way better than High Life, but the rest of the album is still fantastic. Now, of course, this album does also have its quieter moments. For instance, we have Nightvision, that's just these ambient synth chords and these slow electric piano sounds. A very peaceful track. Like, it may be short, but it definitely left an impression on me, and unlike, say, Funkad, which didn't work because it was placed at the end of the album, Nightvision is placed in the middle of the album, so it doesn't feel unsatisfying. And There's Something About Us, this is another one of my favorites, kind of an obvious single choice. This is a much slower one. I really like the guitars on this one especially. At least I think they're guitars. Also, the song hinted heavily at where they eventually went for random access memories. Then there's Veridis Quo. Like, it kind of has this kind of gothic feel to it. Like, it starts out with this sad, creepy organ sound, and like the beat just slowly fades in, and then kind of has this acid house synth line on top of that. Kind of reminds me of this one section from the song Shine by Orbital. Which leaves the end. So first of all, we got Face to Face, which is far and away my favorite track off the album. It's very similar to High Fidelity, kind of like in the same way that song took an old 70s song, cut it up beyond recognition, and then made an equally catchy, if not catchier, hook than the original. And Face to Face also does that. This time, the sample in question is actually Evil Woman by Electric Light Orchestra. I remember that song very well from when I was little. But it's chopped up so beyond recognition that I had to look it up recently. I only found out recently that was Evil Woman. But unlike High Fidelity, which was just all the chopped up samples making catchy hooks out of them, Face to Face is just kind of more of a straight up pop song, like more complex version of One More Time. The vocals from Todd Edwards are also quite catchy and memorable, but the hook on this song is unbelievably great. Like, it really is one of Daft Punk's most underappreciated songs. Finally, the album ends with Too Long. This song plays out for exactly 10 minutes. I'm sure you recall in my review of Homework that those 7-minute songs on that album, some of them just did not justify their length at all. Around the World, even though that one did justify its length, it only just barely did. But Too Long, on the other hand, ironically doesn't feel too long at all. Like, it's kind of a two-parter. The first half is kind of like on the more soulful and quieter side, but about 4.5 minutes into the song, like, this other sample fades in and it just goes out, like, all-out banger mode for the rest of the song. It does get kinda repetitive, especially in the second half, but the same went with Around the World, and this doesn't feel quite as drawn out as that song did, if you ask me. It's actually a lot more like One More Time. Not only is it really catchy, but it also has the same vocalist, Romanthony, I think. It ends the same way it began, and brings the album full circle. Just obviously blows Homework's ending out of the water. So, overall, it's no surprise this is one of my all-time favorite albums. I think everyone has that one Daft Punk album that they really like. For me, it's Discovery. Not only are the singles catchy, but all the deep cuts, the instrumentals, the interludes, they're all interesting, and they're fun to listen to, and they're catchy, and they're memorable. This is just a great album across the board. The album just as a whole is much more well put together than was Homework. I mean, it's not exactly the most groundbreaking album. People sampled funk all the time before 2001. Even the super chopped up nature of Face to Face, that was obviously inspired by Aphex Twin's Window Licker. But even if it wasn't like super majorly important to the development of electronic music, if anything it was more important to the development of pop music, it's still an immensely enjoyable album. Still my favorite Daft Punk album to date, and without question, a must listen. Oh, before I forget, there's this movie called Interstellar 5555, which is a companion music video to this entire album, which is awesome. So, overall, feeling a solid 9 out of 10 on this one. Favorite tracks: One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Nightvision, Superheroes, Something About Us, Voyager, Veridis Quo, Face to Face, Too Long. Least favorite track, probably High Life. And that's pretty much it. What did you think of this album? Make sure to tell me in the comments, or if you have any requests for what I should review in the future, make sure to also tell me in the comment section. I like getting comments. But yeah, that's about it. That's all for today. See you next time.